Transformation of sine function. Question 9. How is the graph of y equals to a sine x related with graph of y equals to sine x? Well, a actually multiplies the sine x by a factor of a. So that effect mean is what? Its effect is a vertical stretch by a factor of a. So the relation is vertical, let me write it like this, vertical stretch by a factor of a, right? That is a very general statement, but we will see three different scenarios and then really understand what it means, right? So as I said, we'll see three different scenarios. So I will draw three different ways for you to appreciate this meaning. So first one, let's just draw sine x. So this is our sine x, right? And we will consider a case where a is greater than 1. So if a is greater than 1, right? So is any value greater than 1. For example, it could be 2, 3, 4 or whatever. If a is greater than 1, then all the values of the sine x will get multiplied by a, right? So we are considering the function y equals to a sine x, right? Now if a is, let us say 2, then this will get multiplied by 2. So it will get vertically stretched, right? So all the points will get vertically stretched. So it kind of becomes like this. But if you multiply 0 by any number, it will remain 0, right? So that will be kind of graph for you. This is actually statement only for a greater than 1. Vertically stretched by a factor of a. We assume a to be positive and greater than 1. Now let us consider a case where a is greater than 0 but less than 1. In that case, what happens? Let's say this is our sine function. Now since a is less than 1 but greater than 0, then this will be divided by some number, right? Let's say a is now 0.5. So we say vertically stretched by a factor of 0.5. Do you understand? 0.5 makes it half, right? So our wave will be kind of like this. Do you see that? So it gets effectively compressed vertically. Do you see that? By a factor of a, right? So you still multiply it by a, but since a is less than 1, it gets compressed. So that is the effect of this a when a is between 0 and 1. Now let's consider the case when a is minus 1, right? So that means I'm considering the case when a is actually less than 0. That means a is negative. That means we are talking about something called y equals to minus sine x, right? Okay, of course I didn't write a here. Let me write again. Y equals to minus a sine x. That is good. Let me make it absolute value. I hope I'm making you understand rather than confuse here. Minus means basically reflection. So we will not consider stretch, which we have already considered. But the same way, what happens is if we have additional minus sign here, then it gets reflected. It gets reflected like this on this side. So this wave will be minus sine x. So if a is negative, the effect is it is reflected. There's a reflection on x-axis. Right? So these are the three things which basically happen. Correct? So one is, if a is greater than 1, then we have a vertical stretch by a factor of a. So let me rewrite this. So in this case, we have vertical stretch by a factor of a. In this case, we have vertical compression by a factor of a, and in this case we have reflection on x-axis. Okay, we are not considering whether A is less than 1, minus, or whatever, right? We're just saying we have additional negative sign here with A, right? So that helps to reflect the wave. So what happens in reflection? Maximum becomes minimum, minimum becomes maximum, correct? We'll consider a similar example with reflection in the next video, correct, to explain you this part more clearly. But anyway, in general, when we have a wave, sine wave, which is y equals to a sine x, then the y values change. So basically, if you're comparing the two functions, let us say f of x equals to sine x and g of x equals to a sine x, then what we are really looking for is any coordinate x and y on this function actually changes to x and ay in the transformed function a sine x. This is the major change. And so in general we say that gets vertically stretched by a factor of a. Of course, if a is less than 1, instead of stretch will be compressed. When you multiply anything by 0.5 or 0.2, it becomes smaller. So we say in that case compressed vertically by a factor of a. Anyway, it's a multiplication factor. And if it is negative, then it gives rise to reflection. Correct? So that is how you can see it, right? I hope you understand and appreciate it. Thank you and all the best.